everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling, and it's time to talk about everything that happened at WWE Survivor Series WarGames. Let's go. The first match is the Women's WarGames match. The babyface team of Bianca Belair, Naomi, Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and late addition to the team Bayley taking on the heel team of Nia Jax, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Candice LeRae, and Ms. Money in the Bank, Tiffany Stratton. Bayley and Nia start the match off and honestly have quite a sloppy exchange. A big feature of this match before all the entrants come in and it really starts to ramp up the pace is seemingly like a lack of plan. I don't know if it's just the agent being too hands-off with the structure of the match. I don't really know, but this didn't pick up for a while. Bayley uses her intelligence, baiting Nia into the middle of the two rings and taking advantage of that situation briefly, but Nia gets control back with a Samoan drop. No, she doesn't, because Bayley avoids it and hits a Hurricane Rana before taking off part of her attire and whipping the champion with it. Nia gets control of the piece of leather, I think, though, and lands a few shots of her own before hitting a hip attack in the middle of the two rings. Then a second one into the cage wall, and it's time for Naomi to join the fray, wearing a nice party hat because it's her birthday. Naomi brings in a couple of weapons, including a kendo stick and a toilet seat. Okay, and the faces use their numbers advantage for a while, but then Nia grabs the kendo stick and lays them out. But the faces fight back with the toilet seat, by God, putting it over Nia's head, and Naomi does a stink face. Because the toilet seat as well, so it's twice as funny. Tiffany is set to come in next for the heel team, but Candice pushes her way in front of her instead. Ooh, ructions. Candice slides a chair into the ring and gives it to Nia, who runs wild with the chair, but honestly, it's kind of bad. It's not all her fault, though. Some of the chair shots are very weak, yes, but sometimes I think it's her opponent's fault because they keep feeding to her with their heads as if expecting, a chair shot to the head, which, of course, we can't do these days. So it's not all Nia's fault, this one, but it's just bad all round. Things get back on track as Candice hits a lion salt onto Bayley, laying across a couple of chairs, but here comes Bianca Belair to help the face team out. She brings in a table and a fire extinguisher, and a few more weapons and stuff like that, and we get, sadly, more kind of sloppy chair exchanges until here comes Tiffany Stratton. Now, Tiffany runs wild for a bit, and the heels take control once again. Here comes Io, though, a few minutes later to pick things up, climbing the structure with her trash can to get in the ring, as she has done previously, leapt off the top with the trash can over her head, but not quite yet this time, because Candice LeRae cuts her off. The pair struggle up there for a while, and then Io goes for a sunset bomb, but Candice hangs on to the side of the cage. I don't know if that was a botch or not, genuinely, but if it was, they kind of improv out of it well, and Io takes control. Tiffany tries to stop Io's roll, and they have quite a gymnastic sort of exchange. Very nice. Io takes care of Tiffany ultimately, though, and runs wild a little bit longer before Nia finally cheap shots her from behind. Raquel Rodriguez is in next, and she teases the crowd by pretending to get another table involved, but just leaving it on the outside, because she's a heel. Nia and Raquel do a bit of an AOP spot, with the two baby faces held up in the powerbomb position, clashing them into each other spine first, and then down onto two more of their teammates on the canvas. Here comes Rhea Ripley finally, and she brings the discarded table into the ring, but there's too many of the heels and they beat her down. I found it a bit weird at this point that of all the wrestlers in this match, the one who most notably did not run wild upon entering the ring was Rhea Ripley, of all people. Really weird. But Rhea's teammates have her back and everyone brawls with weapons. The toilet seat gets broken, Bayley's using Bianca's hair as a weapon, and finally the pace of the match is picked up. It's time for Liv Morgan to enter, but she doesn't want to, with her opponents back on top of the action and Rhea Ripley looking for revenge. Liv runs away, only to get a baseball bat and bring it to the ring with her. Now the match beyond begins, and Rhea takes off the face mask before taking it to her hated rival Liv. She sets up for the Riptide, but Nia breaks it up and the heels again gang up on Ripley. Liv beats Rhea down with the baseball bat and tries to handcuff her, but again the babyface team rallies and helps out their teammate. Everyone takes turns hitting signature moves on each other, which culminates in a big Samoan drop from Nia on Bayley, but it only gets two. Tiffany and Io climb separate sides of the cage and hit stereo massive high spots from the top. Io's with the trash can, of course, over her head. Tiffany with a really nice swanton bomb. It's always impressive when moves are hit from the top of the cage, and Tiffany's a great high flyer with that swanton. Io is... she's something else in WarGames matches. Tiffany fishes in a trash can and pulls out her Money in the Bank briefcase, which she smuggled into the match. Both Liv and Nia, the two champions, are laid out before her, and she really does want to cash in, but she can't decide on who. Raquel tries to intimidate her into not cashing in on Liv, but Io sprays everyone with a fire extinguisher before the cash-in can happen either way. Rhea handcuffs Raquel to a corner of the ring, and then shortly afterwards we get a stare down between Bayley and Io on the same team, but of course there was the whole fallout of Damage Control, and there's still bad blood there. But have they only just realized that they're on the same team now in this moment? I don't know. It doesn't come to anything though, as Naomi and Bianca then team up to powerbomb Nia through a table, but Liv Morgan breaks up the pinfall with her bat. Belair chases Liv, but Raquel cuts off Bianca with a boot despite being handcuffed. Very inventive spot, nice. Then she helps Liv hit Oblivion on Bayley into a chair, but then here's Rhea trying to hit Liv with the Riptide, only for Raquel to save her. Is she her leader? Her friend, you know, it's Liv. Liv lays out Rhea Ripley over a table and heads up top, but Ripley recovers and cuts her off, and we get the big final spot of the match, an avalanche Riptide through the table below to pick up the win for the babyface team. First half of the match, unfortunately, was kind of riddled with sloppiness and mistakes and stuff. It did pick up down the stretch, though, and there were several, you know, big, flashy moments, especially that double dive from Io and Tiffany Stratton. The next match is for the United States title, LA Knight defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke gets a big entrance, bit of a special entrance mask as well. LA Knight is his usual self. Oh, drops the belt briefly, but he's okay. And we're underway. Knight takes control early on, and Nakamura has to roll outside for a breather, but Knight follows him with a boot through the ropes. Shinsuke briefly takes over back inside, but it's still mainly Knight in control of the action. The challenger, however, hits a quick back elbow straight to the nose of Knight. Commentary sell it big, and it did look very nasty, to be fair. Shinsuke presses the advantage until Knight gets a DDT out of nowhere for a near fall and another near fall off an inverted Death Valley driver. Corey Graves calls it a burning hammer on commentary, but mercifully, it's not quite that brutal. He doesn't land on his head. Knight does his spring up to the top rope, but Nakamura slips out of trouble and lands a head kick before heading back up top himself and hitting a scary reverse kind of superplex, but it only gets 2. Nice spot though. Knight avoids the Kinshasa and hits his top rope elbow drop. The pair then battle in the middle of the 2 rings, where Nakamura hits a thumb to the eye and then like a scorpion death drop down to the metal below. Knight is wobbly and Nakamura lands the Kinshasa to the back of the head and pins LA Knight 1, 2, 3, and he is the new United States champion. Next up, oh, this one's a lot of fun. Bron Breakker defending the IC title in a triple threat match against Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser rolls out of the ring early on to let the other two fight it out, but then comes back in with a chair, but Bron ducks it and lands a big high-speed clothesline. Ludwig takes control shortly afterwards, though, and wedges the chair into the corner, but uh-oh, the two big lads are back on their feet and they tee off on the German. Bron tries to run around the outside of the ring into Sheamus, but Kaiser cuts him off with a baseball slide and runs around himself, drop-kicking Sheamus into the ring steps. Bron, though, runs around the ring eventually to join them and flies with a huge shoulder tackle to Kaiser and then gets into a slugfest with Sheamus, eventually just taking him to the floor and laying in some right hands. It's like gritty and messy, but in a cool, realistic way. Yeah. They get back in the ring and Sheamus fights back with a big power slam, but Kaiser breaks up the pinfall attempt. Now Sheamus and Kaiser battle to the outside, where Sheamus tries to powerbomb Kaiser through the announce table, but he blocks it and they both struggle back and forth, and then Bron just leaps off the apron and all 3 of them crash over the announce table, and I'm having a really good time watching this. Kaiser thinks he's back in control briefly, but Sheamus rises up menacingly behind the crowd barricade and grabs him and lays in the 10 beats, followed by 10 to the champion as well, and then he's hyped up. Sheamus, he's hugging people in the crowd. He's such a big man. Kaiser grabs Sheamus's shillelagh at ringside, but Sheamus gets it off him and uses it to clothesline Kaiser into the timekeeper's area. Now Bron is up again in the ring and Sheamus drops the weapon before heading back in to face the champion. So honorable of Sheamus, or so foolish perhaps. It seems to have worked out alright though, as Sheamus does hit the Celtic Cross, but it only gets 2. The champ fights back with a big Frankensteiner, but Sheamus avoids the spear, and Bron runs into that chair from before in the corner, which I'd forgotten about by this point, hits the bro kick to Bron, 1, 2. Ludwig Kaiser pulls out the referee. You horrible man. It's a terrible moment, but also a great one. Sheamus is furious and heads out after Kaiser. He's so full of rage. It's the only belt he's never won in WWE, but Kaiser grabs the shillelagh and beats Sheamus down with it very savagely. They get back in the ring. Kaiser poses with the shillelagh, but Sheamus lands a desperation big knee to the head and collapses into a pinfall on Kaiser, exhausted, kind of like Shawn Michaels. He's made the pinfall, but he's not really in control of it. 1, 2, and Kaiser just kicks out. Ludwig now hits a rolling Death Valley driver and builds up a bit of a head of steam on Sheamus, but Bron comes out of nowhere with a huge spear and Kaiser rolls to the outside. Sheamus is wounded now and alone in the ring with Bron. The champion measures him for another spear and nails it. 1, 2, 3, and it's heartbreak again for Sheamus. Bron Breakker is still the US champion, and that was a really fun match. Next up, we have Gunther defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Damian Priest. And Gunther, remember, he's not feeling very confident recently. We get technical grappling to start, very nice, but it's Priest in control. Will Gunther still be able to bring back the old ring general? Well, he starts to fight back, but Priest regains control and Gunther bails to the outside. But he has a bit of luck in his favor as Priest is favoring his shoulder. Gunther misses wildly with a chop back inside and Priest lands a Mongolian chop to the ears of the champion. He does go back to clutching the shoulder though. The referee checks on Priest, but Gunther doesn't care and kicks it mercilessly. They head to the outside and Gunther whips Priest's shoulder first into the barricade and then the ring post. Back inside, the champion continues to target the shoulder and locks in several submissions, but Priest refuses to quit. They get back to their feet and exchange strikes and Priest lands his jumping roundhouse kick to the head. He fires up some more, but he can't quite put Gunther away. Priest gets out of a powerbomb attempt and goes for the razor's edge, but he can't lift Gunther up, so instead he transitions into a nice triangle choke. The champion breaks it by rolling him into a pinfall attempt, but then when they get back up, he eats a big thrust kick to the face, and Priest again goes for the razor's edge, but Gunther slips out the back, as again Priest's shoulder is just too banged up. The champion does land the powerbomb this time, but Priest kicks out, so Gunther heads up top, but Priest cuts him off and hits a Hurricane Rana, followed by finally getting the razor's edge. But when he makes the cover, he's a little bit slow and can't hook the leg, allowing the champion to kick out. The South of Heaven doesn't connect and Gunther lands another big chop, but Priest again goes for South of Heaven and again fails. Gunther now grabs Priest and rolls him into a Kimura on the bad shoulder, plus a bit of a head scissors applied simultaneously as well, I think. Priest fades, but then suddenly comes back to life and struggles and makes the bottom rope. Now the champion wants to finish Priest off and hits a pair of stiff short-arm clotheslines, but he misses a third one and Priest answers back with 2 big clotheslines of his own. Gunther unbalances Priest up top and heads up as well, looking for a superplex, but Priest shoves him and they both fall. Gunther back into the ring while Priest tumbles to the outside, and the commentary speculate that he may have dislocated his shoulder now on the fall. The referee checks on Priest, who tells him not to stop the match, so the ref gets back in the ring and checks on Gunther, which allows that sneaky Finn Balor to come in from the crowd and hit a double foot stomp, a coup de grace, off the ring steps. Priest's in trouble, but Gunther doesn't really appreciate Balor's help and takes him out with a massive boot to the face. He then brings Priest back inside the ring where he hits the powerbomb, rains down a few elbows on the bad shoulder, and locks in kind of an arm-trapped sleeper hold. Priest is rendered unconscious, and Gunther retains the World Heavyweight title, but doesn't seem too happy about Balor's interference. And finally, the men's WarGames match. The new Bloodline versus the OG Bloodline and CM Punk. The heels are out first and Tama Tonga is starting off and he clambers around the inside of the cage weirdly like a spider evil thing, as only he can. The babyfaces come out one by one and Punk gets into a little scuffle with the heels in the shark cage. Classic CM Punk. What's he like? I should point out, it's through the bars of the shark cage. Punk doesn't just dive into the heel shark cage. He's not crazy, he's tactical. And so are the babyface team at large, because Jey Uso is out last as he's starting off the match. He makes his entrance through the crowd. Just before he does come out though, we see Roman giving Punk a little suspicious side eye in the babyface cage. Oh dear. Jey comes out, he gets in the ring, he's mega over, but Tama doesn't care and stalls as the match begins. Very tentative start from both men. Jey wins a strike exchange with a big right hand, but Tama fights back and uses his agility to take control, ducking all through the ropes and everything. He makes a pinfall attempt. It's too early in the match for that, but he plays off the mistake quite well, going like, oh no, god damn it. So that's quite funny. Bronson Reed is in next and brings a load of chairs into the ring with him, but Jey starts just throwing them at him as he enters, only to run into the brick wall that is Bronson Reed and fall straight down on his back. The heels beat down Jay for a while, but here comes Jimmy to even the odds as he dishes out some enziguris from the middle of the two rings, and a little bit later, a nice corkscrew from the top rope, more like Jimmy Ospreay, am I right? The Usos take control until it's time for Tonga Loa to enter, but Solo stops him and sends in Jacob Fatu instead. Jacob turns the tide for his team and they retake control of the match until it's time for CM Punk. But Roman bars his way and sends in Sami instead, and Punk does not look happy. Sami beats Bronson down for a bit and runs in place on his chest in the middle of the two rings with little stomps, but then Jacob catches him off a crossbody attempt, but Jimmy Uso saves the day with a super kick, and the two babyfaces do their secret handshake to a nice pop from the crowd. Tonga Loa comes in now and once again turns the tide in favor of the heels and also brings a table into the ring as well. Jacob hits a nice moonsault, but finally it's time to even the odds again. Who's it going to be, Roman or Punk? It looks like it's going to be Roman, but Punk shoulders his way rudely past him at the last second and enters the match instead. Now, for a moment, it looks like Punk's not actually going to get in the ring and enter the match, but he's only hesitating because he wants to grab a toolbox from under the ring, a callback, of course, to that Hell in a Cell match against Drew McIntyre. Punk takes out the heels with the toolbox, apart from Jacob, who no-sells it and drops Punk with a big Samoan drop. Solo is the last man on the heel team to enter and talks some trash to Roman at the top of the ramp before he does so, saying, "I'm about to show you who the real tribal chief is." Solo slams the cage door on the head of Sami and then the Usos as well, one after another, and then gets in the ring, and the heels are fully in control now, with Solo directing traffic, barking instructions to the rest of his team, who hit some double team maneuvers on the faces. Jacob hits his step-up moonsault to both Usos at once, and Bronson hits the tsunami on Sami Zayn. Punk is the last man standing, but he gets beaten down, and it looks like only Roman can enter and save him now. But before Roman can get there, Solo locks the door of the main, WarGames cage shut with a padlock and chain. Oh no. Roman's turn comes around and he can't get in the ring, so instead he climbs over, knocking a few of the heels down as they try to stop him. He gets over the top and clambers down to the top rope and hits a sick crossbody onto all the heels at once, more like Roman Ospreay, am I right? It's not as funny the second time. Roman helps up the other members of his team, but he doesn't help Punk back to his feet. Oh dear, the tension is real. Punk gets up himself and argues with Roman, but here comes Paul Heyman from the back to keep the peace. He gives a big speech from the outside of the cage and says, "We need to bring out the best of each other because this is WarGames." This seems to work as the two teams face off across the two rings and brawl in the middle of them, and the faces seem to win the fight for now. The Usos hit stereo splashes onto the GOD, while back in the other ring, Solo goes for the Samoan spike on Roman. Roman avoids it and goes for the spear, but Solo avoids that, and Roman goes crashing inadvertently into CM Punk instead, but I don't know if Punk's going to see it that way. Solo hits the spike on Roman, but unlike in Saudi Arabia, this time Reigns is able to kick out. Jacob then misses a moonsault on Punk and sells his leg hard, and now the babyfaces start to mount a comeback, but one that doesn't last very long, and the heels retake control. They set up a table, but Roman low blows Jacob and spears Solo, only to get taken down by a Bronson Reed super kick, who then sets Roman on the table, and Bronson heads not just to the top rope, but all the way to the top of the cage. Is this the end for our hero, Roman Reigns? No, as our other hero, CM Punk, saves him just in time. Bronson was very close to hitting Roman as he crashed down through the table from high above. Terrifying spot, very nicely timed, and a great moment. Roman now does help Punk back to his feet, which remember he didn't do earlier. This is cinema, guys. But Jacob Fatu spoils their happy little moment, and then Solo takes over and hits a pair of spikes on Roman, 1-2, but the Usos save the day with a double super kick to break up the pinfall attempt. They then pepper Jacob with some super kicks as well and hit him with the 1D. Jacob is set up on a table, and Jimmy now heads up top, all the way to the top of the cage too, and hits a very nice Uso splash all the way down through the table, sending Jacob through the table. I've already said that. You know what I mean. Look at the picture. Wow, look at that. Sami then spends a long time helping the Usos and Punk back to their feet for some reason, just try and pin Jacob, but they all then help up Roman, and it's all taken a while, and apparently friendship is more important than winning. But then I do see what their strategy is, because they all surround Solo, who suddenly is the last man standing on the Bloodline's team. He is defiant though and goes for a spike on Roman, but you know, it's 5-on-1. He gets instantly taken out instead with some super kicks from the Usos, then a haluva kick from Sami, a go to sleep from CM Punk, and a final spear from Roman Reigns, who gets the win. And the OG Bloodline and Punk have won the match. The rest of the boys hug it out with Punk. Roman doesn't, but instead he offers him a very manly handshake, which Punk eventually accepts. They're just two gunslingers out on the old plane. Don't mess with them and they'll leave you alone, but you mess with them and they'll kick your ass. That's cowboys. They're manly men, Punk and Roman, and that's what I was trying to convey there. Everybody slowly leaves the cage. I'm waiting for something to happen because last year CM Punk came back. Obviously that can't happen this time, but I'm waiting for like Rollins to attack him or like a rogue Kevin Owens to show up and try and crash the show. But nothing does happen. It's just a long, slow exit and celebration from the good guys. Punk hugs it out with Heyman, and we hear him say, "When I need a favor, I'm going to come ask you." What does that mean then? Maybe we'll find out down the road. So there you have it. The babyface teams win both the men's and women's WarGames matches. Bron Breakker is still the IC champion. Shinsuke Nakamura is the US champion. And Gunther defeats Damian Priest again. What did you think of this show? Let me know in the comments section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you once again for watching. Thanks to Luke on the edit for this video too. And I'll see you very soon.